All right, this is the last of the text for our first unit, the medieval literature, and we're going to be talking about one of the Canterbury Tales, the Wife of Bath's Tale, which is my favorite one. I didn't really enjoy all of the Canterbury Tales. I had to take a class on Chaucer in high school and college, and the language is very difficult to get through in a lot of ways. But there are several tales that have a lot of redeeming qualities, and so this is definitely my favorite of all of them. If you ever get the chance, the Partner's Tale, the Miller's Tale, the Knight's Tale are all very good as well. But this one to me was was the best, and that's the one I want to talk about today. So I have included here for you a copy of a translation of the Wife of Bath's Tale. The one that is in the textbook is written in Middle English, and so it's a little challenging to get through, and so this one is kind of a lot easier for us to digest. So with every tale, there was a prologue, kind of like a backstory before they started their tales. And in this particular tale, the excerpt that is here for you is very short. The prologue is actually quite lengthy, but I'm just going to kind of summarize in bits and pieces before we start the tale. So the partner, which was one of the fellow travelers on the pilgrimage, laments that there's going to be no marriage for him this year, that he was about to take a wife, and he it kind of fell through, and she said, hold on, listen to my story, and I'll tell you how you can win a woman. And so she shares this information in the prologue about her life and her experiences, and she talks about she's always kind of followed the rules of experience rather than authority. She's already had 5 husbands, so that gives her enough expertise to experience to make her an expert. She sees nothing wrong with having 5 husbands, and she can't really understand. She brings up Jesus' rebuke to the woman at the well who also had 5 husbands, and instead she kind of follows the rule, the biblical command of go forth and multiply. And so to defend her position, she talks about King Solomon, who also had many wives. And then she's sharing all this knowledge from the Bible, and she challenges anybody there at the feast to show her in the Bible where God commanded virginity. And she talks about how women's organs were made for both functional purposes and for pleasure. So she's always been kind of willing to share that with her husbands. And so she talks about the tales of her former husbands and how she was able to gain the upper hand or sovereignty over them. Unfortunately, just when she gets them right where she wants them, when they're kind of not above her and she's mastery over them, he dies. So she talks about then how she gained control over her last husband. So at her 4th husband's funeral, she couldn't keep her eyes off this guy named Jenkin, who was a clerk, and she had already admired him. And at the month's end, she and Jenkin were married right after her husband's funeral, a month after his funeral, even though she was twice his age. As soon as the honeymoon was over, she was disturbed to find out that Jenkins spent all his time reading. Especially, he preferred a collection of tales that disparaged women. So one night he began to read aloud from this collection, beginning with the story of Eve, and he read all about these unfaithful women, murderesses, prostitutes, and so on. And unable to tolerate these stories any longer, the wife of Bath grabbed the book and busted Jenkin across the head with it so hard that he fell over backwards into the fire. So he jumps up and he hits her with his fist, and she falls to the floor, and she pretends like she's dead. And when he bends over, she hits him again and again pretends to die. And he was so upset that he promised her anything if she would live. And that's how she gained sovereignty over her 5th husband. So from that day until the day he died, she was a true and faithful wife for him. And then now she's ready to relate her tale. And she says, after the partner listens to this, he says, go on as you began, tell us your tale, spare not for any man, instruct us younger men in your technique. And she says, gladly, if you will let me speak. So here's her tale. So once upon a time, a knight in King Arthur's court who was a lusty liver. So he was a kind of a little bit of a man who enjoyed chasing women and that kind of thing. And one day, as he was riding, he comes across a maiden who is walking all alone, and his desires kind of got the best of him, and he rapes her there by the river. And so the people are repulsed by this behavior because it was not very knightly, and so they demand justice, and so they bring him before the king, and the punishment should have been that he would lose his head. So the king condemned the knight to lose his head. And so the queen and the other ladies there implored him. They begged him to be allowed to determine the knight's fate instead of his life. She says, let me have him. Let me have the case. And so the king does exactly what the queen asks him to do. He gives her the case and grants her the knight's life. And she could choose whether to show him mercy or refuse. And so she summons the knight before her, and she says, you stand, for such is the position still, in no way certain of your life. Yet you shall live if you can answer me, what is the thing that women most desire? So she gives him a 12-month and a day to go and seek and learn sufficient answer. Then you shall return and reveal your answer to us in 1 year and 1 day. So they love that 1 year, 1 day concept. We saw that also in Gawain. So he is obviously overwhelmed by this task because, he has no clue where to start. So he just starts going around knocking on every door, and he knocks on every place that he thinks he might be able to find sufficient answer for his quest. Knocks at every house, searched every place, but nowhere could he find any two people willing to agree. And he got all these different answers. Some said they wanted wealth and treasure, honor, jollity and pleasure, gorgeous clothes, fun in bed, to be off widowed and remarried. Some said that what mattered most was that we should be cosseted and flattered. Some say the things we most desire are these: freedom to do exactly as we please, with no one to reprove our faults and lies. Others assert that we women find it sweet when we are thought dependable, discreet, and secret, firm of purpose and control, never betraying things that we are told. But she says that's not worth the handle of a rake. Women conceal a thing, for heaven's sake. She kind of chases a rabbit here, and she tells a side tale about women not being able to keep secrets. She relates Ovid's myth about Midas, who one day grew a pair of ass's ears unexpectedly, and Midas was so ashamed that he tried to hide it from everybody, but he couldn't hide it from his wife. And so he tells her about it, and he begs her not to tell a living creature that he possessed so horrible a feature. And she swore that she would not do such villainy and sin as saddle her husband with so foul a name. Besides, to speak would be to share the shame. So she bottles this secret up, and keeps it for a while. And then one day, it's bubbling over, right? She's got to tell it to somebody, but she doesn't want to tell it to another human. So she goes down by the waterside and speaks it into the water. And so she concludes that story with, as you see, although we may hold fast a little while, it must come out at last. We can't keep secrets. And then she gets back on track. Back to our knight. A year is almost up, and now it was the 1 day that he has left before he has to have the answer for the queen. And so he's riding back to the court, and he's sure that he's going to lose his life when he suddenly sees 24 women dancing in a wood. And so he thinks, oh, here's my last opportunity. I'm going to go and see if they have an answer for me. And so as he approaches them, they all disappear, and the only thing that is left there is this little old woman, this foul old woman on the green. It says, a fouler looking creature, I suppose, could scarcely be imagined. She arose and said, Sir Knight, there's no way on from here. Tell me what you are looking for, my dear, for peradventure that were best for you. We old women know a thing or two. And he says, Dear mother, alack the day, I'm as good as dead if I can't say what thing it is that women most desire. If you could tell me, I would pay your hire. And she says, Give me your hand and swear to do whatever I shall next require of you, if so to do should lie within your might, and you shall know the answer before night. And so, of course, he swears, he agrees, and then the crone, the old hag, says, I shall make good my claim. Upon my life, the queen will say the same. She says, Let us go forward without further speech. And then she crooned her gospel in his ear and told him to be glad and not to fear. So they make their way back to the court so the knight can give the queen his answer. In front of everyone, the knight says, the knight stood not silent like a beast, or posts, but gave his answer with the ringing word of a man's voice, and the assembly heard. He says, A woman wants the self-same sovereignty over her husband as over her lover, and master him. He must not be above her. This is your greatest wish, whether you kill or spare me. Please yourself, I wait your will. And it says, in the court, not one that shook her head or contradicted what the knight had said. Maid, wife, and widow cried, He saved his life. And at that moment, the old lady jumps up and she begs the queen to make sure that the knight keeps his end of the bargain. He had promised to do as she had asked if she gave him the answer. And she said, Before this court, I ask you then, Sir Knight, to keep your word and take me for your wife, for well you know that I have saved your life. If this be false, tonight on your sword. And he says, Alas, old lady, by the Lord, I know indeed that was such my behest. But for God's love, think of a new request. Take everything else, but leave my body free. But it's no use. He has to keep his word, and so they were married. So on their wedding night, the knight is paying absolutely no attention to this old lady, this ugly lady next to him. And she's like, is this how knights are supposed to behave on their wedding nights? And he confesses to her that her age, her ugliness, and her low breeding are all just repulsive to him. And so she launches into a little admonishment about being a true gentleman. She's telling him that her looks, if she was good looking, they could be viewed as an asset, because of her looks could be viewed as an asset. If she were beautiful, many men would be after her. However, since she looks the way she does, he can be assured that he has a wife that no one is going to touch. And so she tells him a couple more things, and then she offers him a choice. She says that, I think it's right here, y'all. Sorry. She says, you have two choices. Which one will you try? To have me old and ugly till I die, but still a loyal, true, and humble wife that will never displease you all her life? Or would you rather I were young and pretty and chance your arm? What happens in a city where friends will visit you because of me? Which would you have? The choice is all your own. So she says, I'll give you two choices. I'll be young and pretty and beautiful, and you're going to have to just take the chance that I won't cheat on you. Or I can remain old and ugly, and I'll always be a faithful wife to you. So the knight thought long, and with a piteous groan, at last he said, with all the care in his life, My lady and my love, my dearest wife, I leave the matter to your wise decision. You make the choice yourself for the provision of what may be agreeable and rich in honor to us both. I don't care which. Whatever pleases you suffices me. And she says, have I won the mastery, since I'm to choose and rule as I think fit? And he says, certainly, wife, that's it. So she says, kiss me, no quarrels. On my oath and word of honor, you shall find me both fair and faithful as a wife. May I go howling mad and take my life unless I prove to be as good and true as ever wife was since the world was new. And so he lifts the curtain, and he finds that she is indeed lovely and young and beautiful, and she remains faithful to him. In ecstasy, he caught her in his arms. His heart went bathing in a bath of blisses and melted in 100,000 kisses. They lived ever after to the end in perfect bliss. So they lived happily ever after once he granted her the mastery, which was the point of the wife of Bastel all along.